Governor Samuel Ortom of Benue State unveils the state security outfit to tackle criminal bandits and Fulani headsmen in Benue State. Good morning and welcome to the Dailies on Ekwa Television. I am Owola Bitosin and we'll be doing this together with Sele Elisha. Sele, good morning.
Morning to say.
Thank God it's Friday, right?
Exactly, yeah.
You have time to rest. Or any plans for the weekend?
Well, just to do one or two things, tidy up the house, nothing much. I mean, attend to other private and personal needs.
That's very good. Let's start with the Friday leadership.
Okay, I think from the Friday leadership newspaper. I think I can find my paper, but let me start with the Abuja newspaper first and foremost. The Friday Abuja newspaper. Alleged 109.5 billion fraud. EFCC indicts. Yari reveals how the ex-AGF compromised the TSA and others. With detail of that found on page 9 of the Friday Abuja newspaper. And the screaming story here, which is on $480 million Paris Club refund. Again, governors tackle federal government over deductions. Akwa Ibom job seekers killer to die by hanging, with detail found on page 9 of the Friday Abuja newspaper. Other papers here we have NLNG lose $7 billion to sabotage insecurity in 7 months. APC appoints Lalong as Tinubu's campaign DG. You can read more of that on page 13 of the Friday Abuja newspaper. 8 banks report 176.11 billion naira profits. A budget deficit raised to 30.58 trillion naira in 7 years, with detail on page 26. And here we are having a 17-year-old commit suicide over exam failure in Kwara, with detail found on page 12 of the Friday Abuja newspaper. We have some few picture stories here, so you can do well to get the Friday Abuja newspaper and read detail of any of the stories that's of interest to you.
On the Blueprint newspaper on insecurity, we will apply for AK-47. AK-49 for volunteer guards. This is coming from the Benue State Governor Samuel Ortom. NAF reshuffles top brass, appoints new branch chief. And because of the insecurity in Benue State, we know that Benue State is a soft spot to insecurity. Different communities, attacks being launched in different communities. And right from the onset, the governor of Benue State was in their need to have his own security. That's a state security outfit, and it was launched yesterday, unveiled in the state, and it's a community volunteer police group where they will look into different nooks and crannies in the state to tackle the issue of insecurity, to tackle criminal bandits and even the Fulani headsmen that will move around even in the community and even in the state at large and disrupt the peace of Benue State. And now we see that even he's talking about the supply of weapons for this, because we can't have a security outfit without weapons. Then what is the essence of having the security outfit when they move around without having weapons? And now we see where the governor of Benue State is saying they will supply AK-47 and AK-49 for these volunteer guards. And anyone who is found wanting amongst this guard will be dismissed from office. And we just hope that they'll go through some form of test also. That is for those who volunteer themselves to be part of this community policing in Benue State, so that they will not be found with some kind of narcotics or try to work hand in hand with this Fulani or even criminal bandits. They'll be tested in all form for drugs and even for good conduct, so that we'll have a good security outfit to look out for the peace in Benue State. Then this is another wake-up call for other state governors, because I would say when you talk about defending yourself, going around with ammunition, it can't be controlled, because when it gets out of hand, how do we control it when everybody possess each weapons in different states? But we look out for ways states can have their own security outfit, so they work hand in hand with all these police. And this goes back to even the federal government signing into bill the state policing. It will be very good, because we need to tackle insecurity, then we need to have our state policing. And when we have the state policing, they should have conduct that guides them, principle that they work with, that they will adhere with, so that they won't be found wanting. And we really applaud what Governor Autumn is doing in Benue State, and we hope that from now henceforth we'll get to see good news coming from our security outfit on what they are doing even in Benue State. We see what Amotekun is doing in the south, and we applaud their efforts. So we want to see more things coming from the outfit, the security outfit in Benue State, and this will it will wake up other governors that even relaxed and saying there's no need for having the security outfit. It will wake them up to know that the state policing is important, and they need to have this even in their states.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Tosi, because you see, with what the Benue State governor has actually done, if other governors would also take a lead from him, then we'll see that we'll be able to tackle this insecurity. Because imagine if he has sent these bandits out of Benue, they will look for the next spot to actually attack. And we know there are other neighboring states around Benue State, and there are lots of routes that this bandits and terrorists normally use. So you see, if other states actually take that same lead to also introduce the state policing, then it will become war. This is when we'll say truly we are at war with the terrorists, and there will be no place for them to hide any longer, because every state has actually woken up from the slumber, and we are trying to see as much as we can do. So just like you're saying, let other state governors also take that lead into their states. Let us have the state policing, so that we can be able to fight all this banditry, all these terrorists. And also this will also make work easier for even our security agencies, especially the army that cannot be everywhere, and also the police and other security outfit that are out to do things.
Yes, thank you very much, Stella. The big story on Blueprint newspaper on 2023 presidency: Tinubu Atiku rollout campaign teams. The rider says Lalong leads APC. Keyamo is the spokesperson. Buhari Fatunsin to coordinate Tinubu support group. Dino, the ex-APC Boala, heads PDP media team. With Oshun Oyo in our control, PDP casting to victory. This is coming from Ayu, and we know that Daniel Boala and also Dino Melaye are the PDP spokesperson. Then for APC, the campaign DJ and assistants, we have Governor Lalong of Plateau State and Oshomole. They are to lead the campaign team for the All Progressive Congress. And also on the blueprints, we have more airlines in their straits may fold up, NCAA warns. 2023 Nigerians voter population to hit 95 million. This is coming from INEC. Pledges to revive code of conduct and training manuals. First bank, first money agent transaction volume hits over 22 trillion naira. And ex-IGP Tafa Balogun dies at 75. A fact check: Oshomali goofs, Oshibanjo not head of economic team. World Bank berates government inability to guarantee safety of school. Details can be found in page 22, and that's all on the Blueprint newspaper.
Okay, finally I've got to my Friday leadership newspaper, and I would like to read the Friday leadership newspaper. We have Nigerian wins another 2 goals in discus and powerlifting, with detail found on page 30 of the Friday leadership newspaper. And 6 weeks after running made discord in PDP, Atiku Wike finally meet to resolve the lingering crisis, and the rider following that set up harmonization committee. The PDP National Working Committee passes vote of confidence on Ayu. Then the ex-VP appoints Malaya Mawal campaign spokesperson, and Tinubu names Lalong DG with Keyamo as a spokesman. You can read detail of that story on page 4 of the Friday leadership newspaper. Next story here, we have the civil society organization kick as federal government moves to revive defense company. The civil society organization in the country have kicked against the plan by the federal government to commence local production of arms, allegedly that it is a ploy to siphon money. The civil society wondered why the same government that had abandoned defense industry. Well, you can read detail of that on page 7. Even though Tosi, I'll say this would have been the right one, since we're actually, creating these arms on our own. But you know what this thing will be the outcome at the end of the day. We will now start recording issues like the foreign nation, where you hear a student shot somebody just like that, people walking around because they now have easy access to the arms, and because it's being generated here or it's being created here. So why, rather than looking at how we can, even though it's the right way to create the arms without relying on other people, but then there are other things we should depend on doing on our own. We're talking about technology, creating of all the GSM phones we have and all those other things. We're still talking about Jakarta still that is still lying down dead. Let's not even talk about some of our power plants that are actually lying there and idle. So I think there are other sectors that the federal government should actually look into. So I think this is the right thing the civil society actually say, kicking against looking at and reviving the defense company here in Nigeria.
So let's not go far to even foreign nation. We had a similar issue even on the plateau, where a boy was known to have manufacture all those ammunitions, and it's as if his father did something to him and he shot his father. So let us not even go far. We see all these things happening, but if we can even have this company other than importing, having this coming from foreign country, you know, we have to go through a long process before we have this ammunition. It's not easy coming by getting all this ammunition. The process is really long. If we can have it here, then say like there are companies that have a certain conduct that oversee them. They have the way they are being supervised, that no ammunition can even be taken out of that company. So if we have it, it will be one way of boosting job opportunity, and even on that way of even having like interpersonal relationship with even foreign nations, because they will even come to us to get even ammunition. So it will help us in boosting our GDP. It will help us in even creating job opportunity. It will even help us in having relationship with foreign nations. If we can have it, then we'll look out for ways it can be superseded in the right way. There should be a mannerism taking place in such organization. Then we can have it, because our defense company needs to be up because of the issue we are going through. And if we can have this, it will be good. And even those people who are trained on how these ammunitions are being manufactured and even produced can even be taken to foreign nations to even help. So it will be another edge for us, but it's another issue, the issue of conduct amongst people, and because you feel okay, I know how to do this, then I no one can talk to me. You just feel you are on top of the game. So we just need, if we can have it, then it should be controlled, and those people who are manufacturing it should also be controlled.
True, Tosin. Well, let's look at other stories here. Ekweremadu to remain in UK detention till October 31st, with detail on page 6, still on the Friday Leadership newspaper. China fires missiles in unpredicted drills around Taiwan, and this is an international story, so you can read more of that on page 6 also. Killer of Akwa Ibom job seeker attempts escape after death sentence, with detail on page 30. And Ganduji will sign death warrant on Hanifa's killer. This is coming from the commissioner. For those who are familiar with Hanifa's story, how she was killed by her teacher. And we also have a picture story here, so you can do well to get the Friday Leadership newspaper in detail of any of the stories that's of interest to you.
Thank you very much, Sele. Before we move over to the Nigerian News Direct, we're live on Facebook and YouTube. Do well to drop your comment on stories we've been reviewing so far. On Nigerian News Direct, Oyebanji hails Federal High Court ruling on its candidacy. Dangote Cement consumer promo produces 3 millionaires in Ibadan. INEC projects 95 million voters for 2023 general election. And on insecurity, major shake-up in Nigerian Air Force. The riders say as CAS charges commanders to intensify fight against terrorists. The Nigerian Air Force have approved the appointment and redeployment of some top commanders, new branch chiefs, air officer commanding, and other senior officers. The report that the NAV Director of Public Relations and Information, Air Commodore Edward Gapquet, made this known in a statement on Thursday. Gapquet stated that the Chief of the Air Staff, Air Marshal Oladayo Amao, gave the approval for the immediate appointment and redeployment of the senior officers. He said that all the newly appointed and redeployed senior officers are expected to assume their new offices on or before he said the newly appointed and deployed senior officers are expected to assume their new offices on or before Friday, the 5th of August 2022. Among the newly appointed branch chief are Air Vice Marshal Jackson Yusuf, the formerly Chief of Trading and Operations, who is now the Chief of Policy and Plans, Headquarters NAF, Abuja, and Air Vice Marshal Olafemi Ogunmola. And we'll see the major shake-off even in our aviation, in the military, and even in the Air Force. And we'll see even the army, the land army, should do something about this. The police also, there should be a major shake-up where we see our top officers and we see our military men around every nooks and crannies in the streets, in the streets, even in different states. And this will give those criminal and even bandit groups, they will know that yes, the military are out for them, and they will try to hold back and even retrace their step. So we just hope that it will not just stop in the Air Force alone. We'll see other sectors having a major shake-up even amongst themselves, so that they'll look out for ways they can tackle this issue of insecurity. On Osun Guba election, PDP APC battle over plans to challenge Adeleke's victory at tribunal. Lagos State government seeks stakeholders collaboration for Ehimbeti Lagos Economic Summit 2022. West Africa operators regulators brainstorm in Lagos on responsible lottery and gaming culture. Back page, we have the Femi additional column, and it can be found on the back page of the Nigerian News Direct. That's all on the paper, selling.
And on the Vanguard newspaper, the first story here, Omore's raped mother, court sentences Unduka Abasi to death by hanging, and detail can be found on page 4. And I'm really happy for those who have been following this story. We are aware about Omore that went out for job seeking, and as a result of that, she kept keeping the contact with her family and her friend precisely, and then eventually, she was unable to get that job, even though that means to show that it was a scam, it was fake, and then she was lewd, and before we realized it, she was murdered and buried in the shadow grave. And then I'm happy to hear that the court has actually come about this. So this will be an eye-opener to people. I remember I think within the week where we read, where they said there was no any recruitment, I think, was it for Federal Road Safety?
FIRS.
Yes, Federal Road Safety, where they said there's no any recruitment whatsoever. So anything you see right now is a scam. So this should be an eye-opener for people, whether it's talking about the FRSC, whether it's the police, any recruitment, we need to be very sure. Check it so that you do not fall into the hands of bad people at the end of the day, because we are happy that he's being, persecuted. But then how many more have actually gone unnoticed and nobody knows anything about it? So we need to be very careful and also very vigilant when it comes to seeking for jobs. Other stories still on the Vanguard newspaper, attacks on schools, federal government mauls armed guards, with detail on page 7. And on 2023, APC unveils Plateau governor Lalong as the DG Presidential Campaign Council. Detailed on page 7. And ex-AGF Tafa Balogun dies at Lagos Hospital, with detail found on page 3. U.S. energy report crashes oil prices below $90. Detailed on page 19. And on the state of the nation, Nigeria in deeper hole than in 2015. This is coming from Sanusi, so you can actually read more of that on page 28, what he means by that. Media practice must be free, said Sawolu, NGE president, and others. And I'm really happy this is coming at this point in time, so that the media will have the opportunity to practice freely. This is still in relation to the 5 million naira that was being charged to DSTV, TSTV, and also the Trust TV. So we'll keep our fingers crossed to see what the end of the story will be concerning the fine that NBC have actually placed on these media, bodies to pay. Other stories here, governors to the federal government raise the VAT, pay off older civil servants to avert economic crisis. And I'm really happy the governors are beginning to speak up. The big story here, which says Atiku Wike meets, pledged to resolve the PDP crisis in 7 days. This is in relation to the 2023 election. Made in Abuja at Jerry Gana's residence to raise the joint committee. Party unbeat about peaceful resolution. PDP will win the 2023 election. Are you boosted? And then we now control the southeast heartland. Atiku names Dino Milayi Mawal as spokesman. Still on 2023 polls, 2023 polls will be devoid of any wuru-wuru. This is coming from Buhari. He's reassuring Nigerians. We have a picture story here where we can see the president. From the president, we have the APC vice presidential candidate, Senator Kashim Shettima, the national chairman, Senator Abdullahi Adamu, presidential candidate Bola Tinubu, and the Plateau State Governor Simon Lalong, as he's been receiving audience to be the running mate, and also Governor Lalong being the DG to lead the campaign. And that's all on the Vanguard newspaper.
On the Daily Sun, Madu remains in custody as UK court adjourns hearing till October 31st. Ex-Inspector General of Police Tafa Balogun, 74, dead. And 2023 general elections, NSA INEC chair differs on polls, saying no going back, says Mongonu, and insecurity is a big threat, Yakubu cries out. Downside, we have PDP, Atiku, Wike meets, agrees on modality for reconciliation. Melaye Bwala named campaign spokesperson. Don't stifle press freedom, Sanwo-Olu tells political leaders. NGE vows to resist intimidation and blackmail. Details can be found on page 27 of the Daily Sun newspaper. Shake-up as NAF appoints new branch chief AOCs and others. Sanusi hits Buhari hard, says Nigeria in deeper mess than 2015. APC names Lalong Keyamo presidential campaign DG spokesman. Details also can be found in page 7, and we have two picture stories. First, we can see the chairman Economic and Financial Crimes Commission EFCC Abdul Rashid Bawa and the Controller General Nigerian Immigration Service Idris Isa Jiri after a meeting in Abuja yesterday. The second picture story, we see Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu of Lagos State with Commissioner for Information and Strategy Benga Omotosho, the President Nigerian Guild of Editors Mustafa Isa, and the Vice President NGE West Bolaji Adebiyi, the CEO Diamond Publication Larry Idowu, and also the President Guild of Corporate Online Publishers Maureen Chibo, and MD This Day newspaper Eniola Bello during the NGE workshop at Alausa Ikeja, and journalism and dictatorship. So we need to see where there's a freedom for journalists to air information as it is, because people look out to them for information, accurate information and also reliable information. That's all on the Daily Sun newspaper.
And on the Punch newspaper, World Bank commits $8.5 billion to Nigerian fault 6.7 trillion naira subsidy. We detail on page 19 of the Punch newspaper. We won't allow Lawan to block Buhari's impeachment. This is coming from a senator. And federal government to generate 160 billion naira from call and data tax. We detail also on page 20. Tinubu Shettima Baba chair biting finger that fed him, says Shetu. You can read more of that on page 7. And Buhari mourns Emirates Professor Magudu ex-IG Balogun as he died in Lagos. You can read detail of that on page 6 and 29 of the Punch newspaper. The big story here says Wike camps condemns PDP's anti-South posture, seeks redress. As the writer says, PDP cannot have board of trustee, party chairman, others from the north. This is coming from Wike's loyalist. Ours is a democratic party. We adhere to our constitution, says PDP spokesman. Lamido backs Atiku, Wike's reconciliation, and Wike's men demand equity and justice. You can read more of that on page 2. The picture story here, we can see the Akwa Ibom job seeker killer to die by hanging. This will serve as redress for others that are working in the same way. And Kwara people hang self for failing exam, with detail found on page 5. Lagos policemen, sheriffs invade house, destroy 500 million naira property. And more states to procure AK-47 as insecurity worsen, with detail found on page 2 of the Punch newspaper. And that's all on the Punch newspaper.
On the Sporting Sun, we have on the Sporting Sun, we have CR7 to force a move away from Man United. And on 2022 Commonwealth Games, Nigeria strikes gold again as Nwachukwu sets world record in women discus. Nnamdi wins bronze in para powerlifting and 2 para-lifters disqualified. And we'll say our women are making us proud. True. Even in the sporting world. We had that of Oluwatobiloba and now we see that of Nwachukwu. We really need to support women in sports. And now we still have an issue where they are talking about their bonuses not being paid. This should not be a discouraging factor again to the sports, because now we see women putting effort, even men putting effort in sport. Then their bonuses, their allowances should be paid. We should not see issues where they go on strike again, protest, because their salaries and allowances and even bonuses are not paid and denied. They are denied of such. Umar Sadiq in €25 million move to Dortmund. And on WAFCON 2022, Super Falcons still waiting for unpaid bonuses and allowances. Falconets depart for Costa Rica in high spirits, and Joshua planning to fight Fury in December, even if, and definitely this can be found in page 8 of the Sporting Sun newspaper. Still on the Sporting Sun, we have the English Premier League fixtures. You can do well to find them on the front page of the Sporting Sun, and that's all on our sports paper. But before we move over to other papers, we'll be right back after this timeout. Don't go anywhere. Thank you for staying tuned and welcome back to the Dailies on Ekwa Television. We've been reviewing stories making headlines on our various papers and even on the sporting world. Do well to call us on stories that interest you. We're live on Facebook and YouTube. Do well to drop your comments. I've been doing this with Sele Elisha. Thank you, Sele, for doing this with me. Let's move over to the next paper.
Yes, and the next paper, which is the Nation newspaper, we have UK court adjourns hearing in Ekweremadu's case till October 31st with detail on page 28. Terrorism has not affected food production, and this is coming. The government said 3.9 million jobs created. Where I do not know how true this is, or if citizens or Nigerians would believe this, that terrorism has not affected food production, because to say it has affected food production. We've seen it on our papers that we're having food crisis. The World Bank came to our aid. The African Bank of Nations gave us loans, to be able to meet up with all this things. So we can't say that we are not having food crisis as it is, or that it has not affected food production, because it has. If you go to the market, the prices of food items is very. Just recently on the papers, we here had potato plight affected Irish potatoes, and we know the Plateau is one of the top states in producing this Irish potato to other parts of the country. So you have agree with me that even farmers are afraid to even go to their farmlands as a result of insecurity and all this terrorism. So I think we need to have a redress and go back and check the story. If truly we have about 3.6 million jobs created, then just like you said, our phone lines are open right now. So we really like to hear if people have really gotten this job as of this time, and then so that we can really appreciate the government and not backlash them, saying they are not doing what is expected of them. And still on the Nation newspaper, Kekemeke Moreye remains Oyo APC choice for governor, with detail on page 27. And Oshun APC heads for tribunal over governorship polls, still on page 27. And here we can see that we had a rough time with Kwara before Abdul Razak. This is says the UPEC. And other stories here, we have Lalon leads the APC presidential campaign cancel. Keyamo named interim spokesman, Musawa deputy. The big story on 2023, PDP can win without Wike, Atiku tells the party board of trustee. Buhari lose Rivers yet won in 2015 and 2019. Runner-up raises posers as meeting with candidates, with detail found on page 4. And federal government Google partner to block subsidized YouTube channels, where you can read more of that on page 4. Petrol importation, we can't compete with NNPC, says Ipman. Also, detail can be found on page 4. And JAM mops up exam holes tomorrow. Killer of Akwa Ibom job seeker to die. Detail can be found on page 6 and also page 5 of the Nation newspaper. That's all on the Nation newspaper.
On the Nigerian pilot, BBC slams federal government, promises to release more documentaries on insecurity. Governance has failed, laments showing car. Details can be found in page 7 of the Nigerian pilot. The big story says to die by hanging. Akwa Ibom court sentences 21-year-old Udwak Akpan to death by hanging. Finds him guilty of rape, murder of female job seeker in Yobong, Umoren. Akpan, who confessed to the crime, attempted to escape after judgment was passed. And as Attorney General commends security agencies for investigation that aided suspects' trial. All the stories can be found in page 8 of the Nigerian Pilot newspaper.
Okay, and then let's
Autumn laments killing of over 5,000 to arm security outfits with AK-47. Ekweremadu to remain in custody as UK court adjourns hearing till October 31st. Federal government commends 7 states on forest conservation protection. And APC confirms Governor Lalong as Tinubu campaign DG. Tax fund records over 660 billion naira decline in revenue, and governance has failed, lament showing car. Downside, NDLEA destroy 560,068 kg cocaine and cannabis in Lagos farm. Details can be found in page 5, and that's all on the Nigerian pilot.
Okay, let's take a look at the world of business from national economy. NITO allies fears over petrol scarcity in Abuja. The Nigeria Association of Road Transport Owners have fears of fresh scarcity of premium motor spirit, also known as petrol, in Abuja and environs. NITO President Alhaji Yusuf assured Nigerians in an interview on Thursday in Lagos. Ottoman debunked claims by oil marketers that NITO members were not willing to take petrol to the nation's capital due to the poor condition of the roads. There is no truth in that claim. The fact is that fuel is being distributed and transporters are very happy with the federal government. Well, you can read more of that story on the National Economy newspaper. And still on the National Economy newspaper, Nigeria to raise wheat production by 330,000 metric tons as federal government assures $134 million African Development Bank loan mobilizes 250,000 farmers. You can read more of that on page 4 of the National Economy. Still on the national economy, stakeholders loan federal government approval of $2.59 billion Bagadri Deep Sea Port project, with detail on page 5. BUA Food pays 63 billion naira dividend to shareholders for 2021. And disconnecting customers' electricity supply without 10-day notice unlawful. This is coming from the FCCPC, with detail on page 4. We also have a picture story here, so do well to get the national economy. You can read detail of any of the stories that is of interest to you.
On Nigerian Tribune, Buhari, Anya, others mourn as Akin Mobagunje dies at 90. A renowned geographer and the first African president of the International Geographical Union, Professor Akin Mobagunje is dead. Aged 90, Mobagunje died at an undisclosed hospital on Thursday. The deceased was a 1949 alumnus of University College Ibadan, now University of Ibadan. May his soul rest in perfect peace. INEC projects 95 million voter population for 2023 polls. Federal government, Google agreed to tackle YouTube channel for proscribed group. Tafa Balogun dies at 74. The big story says Atiku, Wike meet, begin reconciliation talks. To set up committee to work out terms, Melaye Bwala appointed as spokesperson for Atiku. APC unveils Lalong as presidential campaign DG. Ex-Emir Sanusi is saying we never had it and this bad in Nigeria. On alleged organ harvesting, Ekweremadu to remain in custody for another 3 months. Court sentences killer of Akwa Ibom job seeker to death by hanging. And UK close to recession, Bank of England says. Details can be found in page 6, and that's all on the Nigerian Tribune.
All right, let's take a look at the world of the sports again. This is from the Sporting Life newspaper. 2 gold, 2 silver medals for Nigeria. Innocent wins bronze. Ronaldo knuckles down in training. Other stories still on the Sporting Life newspaper. Chelsea open talks with Barcelona. Chelsea sealed €20 million deal with Chukwuemeka. Man City frustrated with Kurel's transfer negotiation. And Barcelona optimistic of signing Chelsea Olusun. And also we're having PSG looking to beat Liverpool to Bellingham. And then we still have other stories here screaming on the Sporting Life newspaper. So you can actually get the Sporting Life newspaper to our sport lovers and read any of the stories that is of interest to you.
On the Business Day newspaper, we have a news analysis. Nigeria at war under absent commander-in-chief. Solar eludes electricity-starved Nigerians on FX crisis. And an explainer says airlines trapped fund and the effect on travels. Nigeria, Algeria, Egypt offer Europe alternative to Russian gas. And hotels rebound to pre-pandemic level with the rising cost and inflation seen muting the second half. That's all on the Business Day newspaper.
Okay, and on the Daily Independent newspaper, don't gag the media, Sanwo-Olu tells politicians and public officers. Soldiers beat policeman to death in Lagos, with detail on page 4 of the Daily Independent newspaper. The big story, which is still on the PDP crisis, Atiku Wike agree to raise committee to clear up the grey areas. Ayu reveals how PDP will win the Southwest in 2023. And on the alleged organ harvesting, Ekweremadu to remain in custody till October 31st as judge adjourned case, with detail found on page 29. Lalong heads the APC presidential campaign cancelled as Tinubu's meets Buhari, with detail on page 6. And on Ekiti Guba, court throws out suit challenging Oyebaji's victory at the APC primaries. Other stories here, which is on Nigerian security architecture, gasping for breath. This is coming from Governor Otom of Benue State. Downside of the paper, federal government considered solar energy for power generation, with detail on page 6. And that is all on the Daily Independent newspaper.
On the New Telegraph, I and E Windows, CBN rakes in $3 billion from export proceeds expatriation, caution critics over forex crisis. On the digital currencies, ex-IMF director frets over reliance on internet. Aftermath of Board of Trustee meeting, Atiku, Wike meets behind closed doors. And Plateau withdraws private schools license. Federal government to launch fresh policy on school safety. Nigerian African carriers control 1.9% of global passengers traffic. And this is from IATA. Ex-IGP Tafa Balogun dies 4 days to 75th birthday. The big story on Osun Guba, APC set to challenge Adeleke's victory at tribunal. Says lawyers assures it has good case, and Oyetola's petition effort in futility. This is coming from PDP, says party now in control of the Southwest. Yaga Africa urges security agencies to declare details of arrested offenders. NNPP slams Buhari on 1.4 billion naira vehicle donation to Niger Republic. On worsening insecurity, Air Force appoints 4 new branch chiefs, AOCs and others. Alienation cause of political instability in Africa. This is coming from DSS Director General. Autumn ready to war with killer headers to procure AK-47 and AK-49 for volunteer guards. Step up local arms production. Oshibanjo tells military charges it to be ahead of terrorist and criminal. The full details can be found in page 3 and 4 of the New Telegraph. And a study here links inflammatory bowel disease to increased disease risks. That's all on the New Telegraph paper.
Okay, and let's take a look at the international world with the Daily Express newspaper. Downtown Jim, I'm no national treasure, more of a cricket, with details seen on page 24 and 25 of the Daily Express newspaper. Express crusade to stop the child hunger. You can see more of that on page 10 and 11. And recession on the way, time to batten down the hatches. Britain face a grim economic future as the Bank of England warned of a 15-month recession, where you can read more of that on page 4 of the Daily Express. And that's all on the Daily Express newspaper.
And on the Daily Mail, we have the Bank of England faced a ferocious backlash last night after admitting inflation will pass 13%. Banker who's running out of credit, and we can see the picture story. Obviously, it's a banker who is running out of credit. Inflation set to hit almost 7 times its official target. Critics accuse bank governor of being asleep at the wheel. Now we face a year of recession and soaring interest rates. The best signings, club by club guide, your 12-page guide to Premier League, and it's also back tonight. We have here why City are weaker now, and also still on the Premier League, on how we can foster the relationship even in the sporting world. Then we need to see how we can encourage the sport lovers and even those who are at the forefront of sports. So we need to look into it and learn even from foreign nations on how they boost the relationship even in the sports, and also how bonuses and allowance of those in sports are being paid like very frequently. Then we need to look into it and see how we can do that even in our sports world. And thank you very much, Sele, for doing this. And I would like to wrap up with a comment from Akawu. He says, God help Nigeria, there is hope. We wake up to sad stories every now and then. APC did nothing for Nigeria. Then we look out for 2023. Thank you, Sele and Tosin, and also to our general manager. Thank you for your comment, Akawu Bangus. And thank you also for being part of this production this morning. Thank you for the crew behind the production, and thank you for listening to us and even sending in your comment. Let's do this same time, same station next week, Monday. Have a blessed weekend.